I've just spent all these years trying to stay out of the way of the cops. I figured keeping my distance was the right move, but man, it's been way too long with zero progress. I'm done sitting around. I just had a sit down with the lead investigator handling the scurry case. He told me straight up he's fine if this drags on for 20 years. Well, I'm not. I'm not okay with whoever hurt my kid walking free for 2 decades. Every mystery has that one timing pun, that split second where the lies crumble and the ugly truth finally starts leaking through the cracks. In this film, that realization hits you fast, and it'll absolutely floor you. December 27th, Colorado City, a tiny, sleepy town of 4,000 people out in the West Texas plains, tunes 100 miles from Dallas. It's the sort of place where folks still leave their front doors unlocked at night. Neighbors actually watch out for one another, and the biggest news is usually just Friday night football. Nobody there could have guessed their quiet home was about to become the site of the most gut-wrenching tet ever faced. But everything changed on that freezing December morning. Something went down in a modest house on Chestnut Street that ripped the town apart and left a fathered. He'd spent years hunting for his girl. 13-year-old Haley Dunn was a cheerleader and a total stan. She rocked the sax in the band and crushed it at sports. Volleyball, hoops, you name it. She was a social butterfly who never missed a day, walking over to say hey to her pops. She was a firecracker, the kind of kid who really made a small town feel like a community. Then out of nowhere, she vanished, no note, no clues, just gone into thin air. But here's the kicker that makes this case different from any other mystery you've ever heard. When the cops grilled the guy closest to her and asked where they should search for the missing girl, he pointed them toward one specific county without missing a beat. A desolate patch of dirt more than 20 miles out, and he didn't blink when he named it. Years down the line, that's exactly where her remains turned up. Then the investigators asked him one thing. They asked who he personally suspected. Who did he think was behind the disappearance of this child? He didn't even flinch when he dropped that 4-word bombshell. Both of us. This is the investigation into what really happened to Haley Dunn. It's a story of botched police work, endless questions, and a dad who refused to let his daughter forgotten. 10 years later, with only one arrest, this family is still waiting for the justice they deserve. Stick around because you're about to be haunted by the same question that the neighbors have been asking for ye. How does a kid vanish from a town where everyone knows your name and nobody pays for it? To get the full picture, you have to look at the day the nightmare started. Not when the panic set in or when her dad realized the bed was empty. Forget the 911 call. Go back to December 27th, 2010, the last time anyone saw her alive. Haley had been hanging out at her dad, Clint's place, right across the way for the holidays. Her grandma, Connie, said she was beaming, totally stoked about the new iPod she got for Christmas. That was just Haley, bright light who could make anyone smile just by showing up. On the night of the 26th, her big brother David headed out to crash at a buddy's place. Haley just chilled at home, playing video games late into the night like any normal teenager. There wasn't a single red flag that the next 24 hours would wreck their lives forever. Then came the morning of the 27th at 5:30. Her mom's boyfriend, Sean Atkins. He was driving out to Snyder, about 50 miles away, for his job. An hour later, Billie Jean got herself ready for a grueling 12-hour shift. Before she left, she checked on Haley one last time. The girl was still fast asleep in her room. Everything seemed fine, just a typical Monday morning. Billie figured Haley would just wake up and head across the street to see her dad, same as always. Billie left her cell at the house so the kids could reach out if things got heavy. So, that morning, Haley was flying solo, and that's where the clear-cut story ends, 'cause across Snyder, things were already getting messy. Sean Atkins clocked in for work around 6 in the morning. By his own account, barely 10 minutes after he showed up, he got into a shouting match with his lead and quit. He said he got canned. Said the boss let canned. The story flipped depending on who he told, but his supervisor gave the cops a whole different version. According to the boss, Sean just grabbed a soda, handed over his uniform, and ghosted. By 6:10 was long. No beef, no drama. He just up and left, so now, 30 minutes after Billy headed out, Sean Atkins was jobless, off the radar, and burning rubber back to Colorado City with a wide-open day and a 13-year-old girl home on Chestnut Street. What went down next is where this whole case starts falling apart. Sean swore he drove straight to his mom's place in Big Spring to hop on her laptop and file for lap. He claimed he chilled there for hours before finally heading back to Colorado City. He said he pulled up around 3 and saw Haley at 3:15, right before she allegedly walked to her dad's. That was his story, and on paper it sounded fine, except for one thing. Ping's Dunn-T-Lie tower data from Sean's cell told a completely different tale. Between 6:35 and 6:56 that morning, his phone was hit in a tower in Colorado City, nearly 50 miles from Big Spring, and just minutes away from the house where Haley was alone. The logs show he didn't even hit Big Spring until 9:38. 3 hours after he claimed it straight there. And he didn't leave Big Spring until 2:40 that afternoon. Do the math. If he's leaving at 2:40 and it's 40 miles away, there's no way he's standing with Haley at 3:15. The timeline is broken. It never worked, and investigators knew it from day one. Meanwhile, back in town, Haley's old man, Clint, was killing time like always, waiting for his daughter to knock on the door. She did it every single day, mornings, after school, or just to say hey. That was their thing. Clint lived for it. But on December 27th, the door stayed shut, the phone never buzzed. As the sun went down, that quiet started feeling real heavy. Around 2 that afternoon, a text went out from the phone Billy left for the kids. It was for one of Haley's friends. Just 4 words, "What are you doing?" The friend never hit her back. That might have been the last pulse from Haley's side. Around 4, her brother David rolls up. He tried the front door, locked. He knocked and knocked, but got nothing. So David did what kids do. He hopped through a window. Once inside, he finds Sean just standing in the hall. David said Sean looked absolutely floored, like a deer in headlights. He looked like a guy who wasn't expecting anyone to walk through that door. That night, Sean grabbed Billy from work. When they got home, Haley was a ghost, Billy asked. He told her Haley took off on foot to her dad's and planned to crash at Mary Beth's place. Clint Dunn shut that down fast. Haley never showed, not even once. "I did my thing and got home around 3. Haley was there on the couch watching TV, so I went back to the bedroom. She pops in and tells me she's heading to her dad's, then staying the night with a friend. Then she's gone. I was solo for maybe an hour tops. Then David and some kids show up. They hit his room for video games and whatever. Billy hits me up saying her shift cover showed, so she's getting out early. I hit the hospital in Snyder around 6 to grab her. We rolled home and crashed right after. And the whole time, you're thinking Haley is just hanging at a friend's. Yeah, and what time did she say she was heading out? Wait, you mean when Haley took off, right? I'd say it was somewhere between 3 and 3 when she mentioned leaving. It was pretty much right after I showed up. I can really pin down the exact minute. Does she usually touch base, or is it normal for her to go ghost for this long? Actually, it's pretty typical for her not to call since she's always crashing at a buddy's place. She just roll back in the next day. But when Billy rang the girl's family the next morning, they shut that story down. Haley never got ever. No one was expecting her. There were no plans. When the feds tossed Haley's room, the whole story just fell apart. Everything was still there. Her closet was full. All her gear was untouched. The stuff any 13-year-old would grab if she was staying over somewhere. It was all right where she left it. No packed bag, no goodbye. Zero prep work. She had just vanished into thin air. The missing persons report didn't hit the desk until the afternoon of December 28th. The cops just figured she ran away. That call would eventually get them blasted by investigators, the press, and the whole town. Because Haley Dunn wasn't a runaway. She was a 13-year-old who loved school and her pops, never missing a day at his place until she disappeared forever. In a tiny town, a missing kid hits different. It's personal. It's a weight everyone carries. And in Colorado City, Texas, things got heavy overnight. Once the word got out that Haley hadn't come home, this town of 4,000 rallied like only a small town time. They all showed up, neighbors, business owners, even the high school kids. The streets were packed with people ready to work. Volunteers started mapping out search grids. Flyers were plastered on every single pole and shop window in the county. Folks hit the back roads and empty lots. covering ground the cops couldn't get to fast enough. It was the kind of effort that shows why community matters. Everyone was desperate to find Haley. They wanted her home. Everyone. That is, except the two people in the house where she was last seen. Haley's dad, Clint, was out there every single day, relentless. He was even digging through dumpsters. He scoured the alleys and every inch of Colorado City he could reach on foot. People there back then said you could see the raw pain in every move he made. The way he watched every car pass, refusing to quit even when he was running on empty. The man was stopping until he found his girl. But people started noticing a really weird vibe elsewhere. Billie Jean, Haley's mom, was happy to talk to the press. She did all the interviews. She was on camera and handing out flyers. But when the search moved into the rough country, the open plains and the brushland out in West Texas, the kind of place where a kid could stay lost, Billie was a no-show. She claimed she couldn't do it because it meant accepting they might be looking for a body instead of audio. Some folks bought that, but a lot of people weren't feeling it. Then you had Sean Atkins. He did touch a single flyer or join one search party. He didn't knock on a single door, while the whole town was upside down, looking for this kid. The last person to see her alive was nowhere to be found. He steered clear of the search zones and the volunteers. He mostly dodged the investigators too. People noticed his absence. They talked and they didn't talked. It's day 9 of the search for Haley Dunn, and we've still got nothing. I was at the Dunn house this morning and saw Texas Rangers tearing through Haley's bedroom. If you look right over here, that's the window to her room. Rangers say they haven't found a thing. No foul play and no sign she ran off. A week later, and Haley's still gone. Mom's fed up, but she's still holding out. I've got a bank on her leaving on her own and coming back, because if I lose that hope, I've got that hope. Word from the local cops is they're chasing down a few fresh leads right now. The big guns are in now, and there's $25,000 on the table for any word on Haley. 4 days after Haley vanished on New Year's Eve, something went down that rocked Colorado City. A rager broke out at that house on Chestnut, the very haunted Chestnut, music blaring, a huge crowd, and the party didn't stop until the early hours. Billie Jean claimed she forgot it was even New Year's, saying friends just stopped, but a cross stopped by. Clint Dunn was out on his porch in the biting cold, clutching binoculars, staring into the dark for his kid. He saw every light and heard every laugh. In a moment that'll break your heart, he later told the press exactly what was going through his head. He couldn't grasp how anyone could celebrate while his daughter was lost in the middle of a Texas winter. That one visual, a broken father watching a party from the shadows, basically defined how the public saw this whole mess. Meanwhile, the official probe was moving at light speed. By January 4, 2011, the Texas Rangers and the FBI were officially on the clock. When the heavy hitters show up, you know the cops aren't just looking for a runaway anymore. Over 100 billboards with Haley's face popped up all over Texas and the neighboring states. The story went national when Nancy Grace put Billie Jean Dunn in the hot seat on her show. Literally overnight, the mystery of Haley Dunn became a story the entire country was hooked on. You were on national TV and Nancy Grace was really grilling you. What was that like, seeing her go after Billie? Look, I heard about it. I was tied up with the Rangers while Billie was on air. It's frustrating air. You know, the things she said, but I don't let it get to me, because my head is just on Haley and getting her home. Does it burn that people are pointing fingers? Yeah, it hurts. It really does. Talk to me about your vibe with Haley. We were solid. I love that kid with everything I've got, and I know she feels the same. We were great. Anything else you want to clear up about you and the family? Seems like people on the internet are talking a whole lot of trash. Look, me, Haley, Billie, and David, we were all fine. I'd never lay a hand on that girl. I love her with everything I've got and just want her back safe. On January 5th, right after the feds moved in, Billie told Sean to pack his bags and get out. Folks close to them weren't shocked. They had a rocky relationship and had split up a bunch of the four. But this time, things were heavy, the walls were closing in. And the truth about life at that house was way uglier than anyone first thought. Reporters and detectives started seeing that things had been messy in there for a long time. We're talking heavy drinking, constant adult parties, and an environment that was just toxic for those two kids to grow up in. One reporter said it was a house where the adults' drama always came before the kids' needs. Then the detectives started digging into the history between Billie Jean and Sean Atkins. What they found wasn't news to the local cops. 10 months before Haley vanished, the police were at that house on Chestnut for a domestic call. Billie and Sean had both called 911 on each other that same night. The officers who showed up described it as a total powder keg of aggression and emotion. Things were getting nasty. Tensions blew up way before the law showed up to shut it down. I need to call someone in. Give me the play-by-play. I dumped him 2 days back, and now he's promising to end me. Says he's gonna go out in a blaze of everyone will talk about. Look, I'm in a spot here. My ex somehow swiped my stash of nerve pills and started popping them like candy. She's saying she downed a handful of her own painkillers on top of it. Now she's talking about checking out early because she tried to pin some threats on me and felt bad about. She was just spiraling. She's just, not in her right mind. Told her she was dead. Hell, Billie's finished, man. He's been at this since sunrise. Copy that. But like clockwork, they patched things up and went right back to it. Sean hauled his gear back home. Things on Chestnut just went back to normal. Once the heat was on, Haley's friends started talking, and the stories were chilling. Everyone said Stein being the same Rue in the Sean Atkins. To her, he wasn't a stepdad or any kind of father figure at all. Her inner circle said he straight up creeped her out. The stuff Haley would vent about regarding him. Like what? She hated him. Didn't he trust him as far as she could throw him? He terrified her. I can't stay here. I need to be at your place because I'm totally on edge. Her Rama. Connie eventually spilled a dark secret Haley had shared with her. On more than a few nights, way past midnight, she'd see a dark figure just hovering by her bedroom door, and it scared the life out of her. Billie Jean tried to play it off like they were just pals, but Haley's real friends painted a much darker picture. The detectives started digging deep into the phone logs and bank statements for both Sean and Billie Jean. What they dug up started shredding their whole alibi piece by piece. First off, there was the whole deal with Sean's employment. He claimed he got canned from that Snyder gig, but his boss told a completely different story. He told the cops Sean showed up, grabbed a soda, handed over his work clothes, and just walked out. He was gone by 6:10 m. When the heat was on, Sean folded and admitted and let go. Said he just didn't want to deal with Billie Jean blowing up over him quitting. That's one lie down. But the phone pings showed something way more sinister than a work dispute. The logs proved that between 6:35 and 6:56 that morning, his phone was hitting a tower in Colorado City, right where Haley was sitting all by herself. Not Big Spring, not some highway. He was right there in town. Sure, his phone eventually showed up in Big Spring later on, but he didn't roll in until almost 9:40 and stuck around until 2:40 that afternoon. On top of that, more pings put him somewhere out in Scurry County later that same day. To most people, that's just a random spot, but the detectives were locked in because weeks before, when the cops first grilled Sean about where Haley could be, he didn't even blink before answering. Scurry County, he called it out before any search parties went there, before any clues surfaced, before any body was found. He was the first one to say the name. Then, when the feds asked him point blank who he thought snatched Haley, his answer chilled everyone to the bone. Both of us. They put Billie Jean and Sean on the box during the first few weeks of the case. The first test was a total wash because they were both high as kites when they sat down for it. Billie claimed she was just looped out on her nerve meds. The second go-around showed they were both lying through their teeth on the big questions. Sean bailed on the lie detector twice, refusing to finish. He called the whole thing a setup. He claimed the cops were just trying to squeeze a confession out of him for a crime he didn't commit. But even when he did play along, the stuff he actually told the truth about was enough to give a night nurse. Both of us were out in Scurry County, but the cops still didn't have enough to slap the cuffs on anyone. So the search parties kept at it, and the whole town refused to give up. More billboards went up across the state, while the truth about what happened to Haley stayed buried in that frozen, flat West Texas dirt. I want to thank everyone for coming out today and letting me get this statement on the record. First, I'm talking straight to Haley. just in case she can hear my voice. Wherever you at, baby, I'm looking for you, and hundreds of other people are right there with me. We just want you home safe. I'd give anything to see your beautiful face and just hold you. I love you so. I am falling apart without you here. Not a single minute passes where I'm not praying or crying, just wishing you were back in our living room. I can't not, knowing if you're okay. You're the most gorgeous girl I've ever seen, and I'm so damn proud God picked me to be your mamad. Now, if someone out there has my girl, please, just let her go. Just set her loose. Drop her at a church, a school, or a precinct. Anywhere she can get to a phone and call the law. Some people have straight up called me a liar to my face. Others are whispering that I'm involved in her vanishing, or that I'm covering for somebody else. People keep accusing me of hiding things and blowing off the police, but that's a load of crap. Now I'm stuck defending my own name against these crazy lies and people trying to trash my character. In every real deal investigation, there's a moment where it stops being about the missing pieces and starts being about the clues of the whole time, hiding in plain sight. For Haley Dunn, that moment hit when the feds finally got a look inside the homes of the two people this mess, and what they stumbled onto didn't just raise a few eyebrows. It flipped the entire case on its head as January blurred into February 2011. Detectives were quietly piecing together the reality of the world Haley had been living in. From the sidewalk, that house on Chestnut Street looked like any other spot in Colorado City. Totally plain, the kind of place you drive right past without a second thought. But behind that front door, the law was uncovering a reality way more twisted than any of them imagined. While tossing the residence, the cops found some printouts that set off major alarms. Billie Jean Dunn and Sean Atkins had seconded story. The stuff in those articles wasn't exactly light bedtime reading. They were obsessed with serial killers, brutal violence, and people hurting their own family members. The investigators bagged and tagged every single thing they found. When they grilled Billie about it, she told them she and Sean were just fascinated by dark, creepy stuff, saying plenty of true crime fans are into the same kind of macabre topics. The detectives working the case weren't buying that excuse for a second, but as sketchy as those papers were, they weren't even the biggest bombshell the law dropped during the search. That happened on February 24th, 2011, 2 months after she vanished, when a discovery rocked the whole town of Colorado City. On a thumb drive found inside the Chestnut Street house, and on another computer at Sean's mom's place, investigators found a stash of photos, so sick the details were sent straight to the top brass. They found over 100,000 images total between those two spots. The content was all about the exploitation of kids. The sheer amount of what they found was absolutely staggering by any standard. Not a few dozen, not even hundreds, but over 100,000 files, sitting right where children live. Just let that sink. 100,000, even with that massive find. No one got hit with charges right then. The evidence was kicked over to a grand jury to see what they'd do with it. The local sheriff admitted it was a mess, mostly because so many people had been living in both of houses. Detectives needed to pin down exactly who was behind those files before they could slap on the cuffs. On paper, they were just playing it by the book. But for the family watching from the sidelines, that lack of immediate action was a bitter pill to swallow. Then Haley's old man, Clint, went public with a detail about those early days, something that just poured salt in the wound for everyone involved. Apparently, after the law bagged a laptop and locked it up at the precinct, Sean marched right into that station and demanded the computer back, and cliently handed it over, right in the middle of a homicide probe. They gave back key evidence while a little girl was still missing. Nobody knows for sure if that bonhead move tanked the case or not. But for the folks rooting for Haley, it was just one more reason to believe justice was a pipe dream. The heat stayed on, though, and by March 17th, 2011, they finally made an arrest. Only, it wasn't at the big break the neighborhood was praying for. That morning, the law rolled up to Billie and Sean's place to have a little chat with Sean about the going case. When the cruisers pulled up, Billie Jean swore up and down Sean wasn't there, but once the cops flashed a warrant and searched, they found Cheyenne's Hykins hiding in the shadows. He'd been there the whole time, and Billy had lied straight to their faces to protect him. So, Billie Jean Dunn got hauled off for obstructing justice and lying to the law. Come June 2011, she walked away with a suspended 90-day stretch and a year of probation for covering for Sean. She did her time over 250 way in Travis County, where she and Sean had skipped town to after leaving Colorado City. The fact that they both bolted from the crime scene while a kid was still missing, a kid that was Billy's own flesh and blood. Didn't he sit right with the cops or anyone else following the news? Eventually, the two of them spia 2012. Over the next few years, Billie Jean started backpedaling on her support for Sean. She eventually told the press that as the evidence started piling up, and with the cops and the FBI both pointing the finger at Sean as their main guy, she started thinking he probably did have a hand in whatever happened to Haley. She couldn't realize his spleen was stuck by him after her girl vanished. But she admitted she wasn't shocked anymore by what the detectives were saying about him. Down in Colorado City, Clint Dunn wasn't going anywhere. He kept hitting the pavement. He never stopped blowing up the detectives' phones, making sure they didn't just let the case to coals. He kept Haley's face all over social media, not just when it was trendy or on anniversaries, but every single day, year after year. He was gonna let his daughter become just another Dusty some catmint. He was dead set on making sure people remembered her name, and in a way nobody saw coming, that grit eventually led to a massive twist in the search. But before that hit, there was a long, brutal stretch of nothing but silence. As 2011 bled into 2012, Haley was still just gone. That one question, where is she, haunted every single person who cared, from the cops to the neighbors who searched every ditch in town. Then on March 16, 2013, a hiker stumbled into a field out in Scurry County, near Lake J.B. Thomas, about 20 miles outside of town, and that's where they found her. In 2013, the locals got the call about human remains out by the reservoir. They sent the bones off to the experts at the University of North Texas to see who they belonged to. On April 26, 2013, the Dawes office got the word in writing. The remains were definitely Haley Dunn. They pulled skeletal remains from the site and sent them straight to the lab. The DNA results from North Texas confirmed the nightmare the family had been living for 2 years. Those remains belonged to Haley. She'd been sitting in that same county Sean Atkins pointed to since day one, long before anyone even started looking. The coroner officially called it a murder. Clint Dunn said cops figured someone bashed her head in with something heavy, though they never found the actual weapon. They didn't have done on anyone yet, but for the first time, the detectives finally had some real traction. A body, a scene, and a cold-blooded killing. Folks back in Colorado City, who'd spent over 2 years praying for a miracle, finally had to swallow the bitter pill. Everyone close to the feared Haley was dead, stolen from them. Clint Dunn hit a level of heartbreak that words just can't touch. But it lit a fire in him too. This wasn't some runaway kid anymore. This was a straight-up homicide. Clint wasn't backing down until he saw the person who killed his little girl behind bars. It's a damn shame, but the family waited 4 more years just to give her a proper burial. Her mom's making noise now, trying to find the killer. 6 years back, 13-year-old Haley out her dad's place in Colorado City. Out west of Abilene, they found her bones 3 years in, but the murderer is still walking free. Her mom, living down in Austin, is still holding out for some kind of justice. I keep wanting to buy it every time you say an arrest is right around the corner. All that red tape and lab work meant Haley didn't get a funeral until January 2017, over 6 years after she went missing. 6 long years and not a single pair of handcuffs. There's a special kind of hell for families with no closure. It ain't that quick, sharp sting of losing someone. Sure, that hurts too, but this is a slow burn that gets deep in your soul and just stays there. Waiting is its own kind of hell. Watching years go by while the monster who wrecked your life lives like nothing happened is grapping the phone to bug the cops only to get the same old runaround you've heard 100 times before. From 2013 through most of that decade, that misery was basically Clint Dunn's whole world. He had his daughter back, but she was in a body bag. It was officially a murder. They had a main guy in their sights, no question. Yet the file just sat there gathering dust. I've been trying to give the cops their space all these years. I figured staying off their backs was the right move, but I've just seen too much time go by with zero results. Nothing's happened. I'm done playing the waiting game. The guy handling the case in Scurry County told me once he didn't care if it took 20 years to close this. Well, I damn sure care. Whoever hurt my kid shouldn't be breathing free air for another 20 years. So you think the killer is still roaming around? Yeah, I'm betting he's right here in Big Spring, Texas. Big Spring, yup. I know for a fact he was there 2 months ago. You got a name. Sean Atkins. You think it's him? The only guy they ever named? Yeah, and I think Billie Jean's hiding something too. She's told too many talls and Don dodged dodge-a-dids. But Clint didn't quit. Not for a second. He stayed on those detectives' tails. He was blowing up their phones and showing up at the station demanding the truth. When the calls and emails went nowhere, he moved the battleground online. He started blasting Haley's story all over social media. It wasn't just once a year on her birthday. He was posting her pictures every single week, month, year, week. He kept everyone in the loop on any new leads. He poured his heart out about his pain and his refusal to let Haley's life become just another some West Texas basement. Over time, those posts hit thousands of screens. Then, in 2019, the right person saw it at the perfect time. Some anonymous tipster from night school. Back in 2011, this student stumbled on one of Clint's posts, and something about it jots. It dug up a memory of something they'd found years back, right after Haley vanished. Back then, they didn't know Haley Dunn was. They never linked what they saw to any kind of police investigation or some news report about a missing kid. To them, it was just some random junk that they found that seemed to matter at the time. So they just kept it to themselves and never told a cell, totally forgetting about it until 2019. When Clint's post hit them like a tonics, the dope memory suddenly got real dark, real fast. This person hit Clint up directly and spilled everything about what they'd found all those years ago. Nobody knows exactly what those items were. The details are still kept totally hush-hush. The cops are playing it close to the vest for the case. But what Clint told the press later on was it cultural game chaser. He said those items were sitting right in a spot where search teams had crawled all over during the first search. It was a place volunteers and law enforcement had cleared a dozen times. Yet they somehow walked right. That news by itself started bringing up some ugly questions about what else they blew in those first weeks. It turned the heat had been freezing cove for a way too long. Right around then, another player had been working the shadows of this case for years, never letting up. That'd be Erica Morris, a pie who'd been riding shotgun with Clint since the very beginning. Over the years, Erica made it her life's work to keep the fire lit under the detectives, working her inside contacts and chasing down every lead the official channels were either too busy to touch. She became the bulldog of the group, always barking for the truth about what happened to Haley. Then, in late 2019, an email popped up that put Sean Atkins and Reich in her back. Starting that October, women from all over West Texas started hitting her up with some disturbing messes. They were all getting creeped out by some guy online calling himself Casey. Erica knew that name instantly. It was Sean Atkins' middle name. She wasn't about to brush that off as some random fluke. She told those women to send over every photo and video the guy had been sending them. One look at the screen and she knew it was Sean. She'd been staring at this guy's face for years. She knew exactly who she was looking at. Come October 28, 2019, Erica walked one of those women right into the precinct to file a formal report about the harassment. But then comes the real kicker in a case full of them. The cop at the desk wouldn't even take the complaint. He told the woman she was full of it and basically accused her of making the whole thing up. Just like that, they shut the door. But Erica Morris wasn't about to just roll over and take it. She blasted out an open letter to the cops, and the whole damn world. She laid it all out. The evidence, the victims' stories, and how it all tied back to Haley. Then, she dropped a bombshell of a warning. If they didn't lock Sean Atkins up right now, more people were gonna get hurt. She didn't mince words or play it safe. It was a loud, desperate alarm for everyone to see. For a while, nothing happened. 2019 turned into 2020, and still, nobody moved. But early in 2021, the tide finally started to turn. Ricky Thompson over in Mitchell County finally decided to pull the trigger on a move then. He reached out to a crew built exactly for messes like this one. The Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit. These guys are the elite, focused only on cases that have gone frosty and need some new blood and Siri cup to finally get things moving again. The Rangers tore through every piece of the Haley Dunn file. Phone pings, bank statements, those failed lie detectors, the stuff they found in the houses, the holes in the story, and every lie that didn't stick. After hashing it out with the old school detectives, they finally made their move. Cops hit the courthouse to snatch Atkins' Dina. That warrant dropped on June 13th. 2021, 10 years after Haley first went missing. After finding her body and 11 years since she vanished, they finally cuffed Sean Atkins for her murder. Folks in town are raw and talking straight tonight. Atkins is jailed for killing 13-year-old Haley Dunn. This town spent a decade hunting for justice. Tonight, they're finally getting somewhere. News of the bust moved like lightning everywhere. People just lost it when they heard. Those screaming for justice finally felt some hope. They actually felt it for once. Clint Dunn watched that house through binoculars for years. He never let his daughter's name be forgotten. The man finally got his big moment. He spoke with that heavy, quiet calm. He said words couldn't even describe the feeling. He thanked the searchers and shared his drive. He's praying for real justice in court. Billie Jean wasn't exactly shocked by the arrest. She stayed with him but can't explain why. She's just glad he's finally facing the music. Bond was set at $2 million. They're making sure he stays behind bars now. By December of 2021, he was indicted for murder and a cover-up. Finally, they had a defendant and real charges. The system finally faced what it ignored. The Day only put out one single page. He's the guy they say killed Haley. He was busted, but the details are thin. The DA stiff-armed us on the actual warrant. They're hiding behind child abuse laws now. It's been 10 days, and we're still waiting. All we've got is this tiny scrap. It says murder but doesn't show the proof. We'll keep digging for the real story. If you follow true crime, you know, handcuffs aren't a conviction, and charges aren't verdicts. The road to a prison cell is brutal. The whole town knows the drill. Everyone realized how ugly this fight would get, because justice for Haley isn't a done deal. Legal talk sounds boring, but it's everything. Lack of proof, it sounds cold, sterile, and totally final. But for a family waiting 10 years for justice, those words feel like a middle finger. A steel door slamming in your face. It's the worst kind of ending to a story that should have had handcuffs. By June 2023, that phrase defined Haley's case. After 10 years of nothing, then a break in 2021, plus a $2 million bond and real murder counts. Mitchell County just dropped everything against Sean Casey Atkins, despite the Rangers' hard work. It was a without prejudice toss-out, meaning the door is technically still ajar. But on the street, Sean Atkins walked out a free man. A case that haunted this town for a decade just went back to square one, unsolved. The DA's legal logic made sense on paper, but it gutted the family. Their whole play was basically just circumstantial. No one actually saw what went down on Chestnut Street that December morning. No weapon was ever found to link him to the crime. There wasn't any DNA evidence to prove he was the one who killed Haley. His cell phone data put him in the wrong spots at the worst times. He lit up the lie detector like a Christmas tree. He even pointed cops to the body. But talk is cheap in a courtroom. In court, you need hard facts, period. One lead investigator wouldn't stay quiet. He called the dismissal a straight-up miscarriage of justice. Not a paperwork error, but a total failure of the system. That's coming from a guy who lived inside the investigation, who looked at every single piece of evidence and knew they had their man, even if the law couldn't close it. For Clint Dunn, it was another jagged scar on a heart that's already been ripped out. But if you know anything about Clint and how he takes every hit the system throws at him, you know he won quit. He sat on that porch with binoculars and searched every trash bin in town. He bugged the cops so much his persistence is part of the case file now. Dads like that don't just stop because of a court filing. He's still going. Haley's file is still an active cold case with the Texas Rangers, years. Sean Casey Atkins is still the only suspect listed on that document. There's still a $3,000 reward for anyone who can finally end this. The tip line is hot. People are still watching. Word is, the heat is ramping up again as fresh leads and better tech come in. Billie Jean Dunn's lawyer says she had zero to do with her daughter's death. She's never been charged with anything related to the actual killing. That part is still a mystery. Meanwhile, P.I. Erica Morse is still pounding the pavement. She isn't walking away. She isn't letting this dismissal be the final word. And the people in Colorado City, in a town of 4,000, people have long memories. They haven't forgotten Chestnut Street. They remember Haley like a collective failure, a kid they couldn't protect. They're carrying the grief and a stubborn refusal to let it go without the truth. Because when you look at this whole true crime mess, it wasn't like they had nothing. They knew exactly where the clues led. Right out the gate, the feds had a target. The cell logs told the whole story. His story had holes, and the lie detector tests kept flagging red. This guy literally pointed to the exact spot where they found her remains later on. But even between messy lab work and tough court rules, Haley's family is still waiting for justice. This goes way deeper than some legal loophole. It is a tragedy tearing apart a real family down in West Texas. This is why these stories hit different, far beyond just dates and evidence bags. Behind every dusty file and every unsolved hit, behind every bounty that has been sitting there for years, there is a dad like Clint out there, refusing to quit. Haley was born August 28, 1997. She was a cheerleader who played sax and crushed it in 3 different sports. She was a total daddy's girl, crossing the street daily just to give him a hug. She was only 13 when some monster decided her life did not mean a thing. She deserved a whole lot more than this world or the courts ever gave her. This flick lays out the facts, but do not think for a second this is over. The file is still open, the suspect is still out there, and the family is still swinging. Look, somebody knows exactly what happened, and they could blow this case wide open. If you know anything about what happened to Haley, the Texas Rangers are waiting for your call. The tip lines are live, and her dad, Clint, is still out here making noise, fighting for his girl since December 28, 2010. That is just what a father done. And that is exactly what Haley deserves. A 13-year-old girl crossed the street every single day just to hug her dad. That was Haley Dunn. A cheerleader, a saxophonist, a kid full of fire and light. And one cold December morning, she was gone. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. Her story isn't just a crime headline, it's a wake-up call. Because the danger that took Haley didn't come from a stranger in the dark. It lived inside her own home, wore a familiar face, knew her routine. This is the truth no parent wants to hear, but every parent must. Know who is in your child's life, not just their name, their character. Build the kind of trust where your kid can tell you anything without fear. Because silence in a household can be the most dangerous thing of all. Talk to your children, watch over them, not with control, but with love. Teach them that their voice matters, that speaking up could save their life. Haley deserved a future, so does every child living under your roof right now. Communities protect children when every adult chooses to pay attention. Not just the police, not just the school, you. If something feels wrong about the people around a child, say something. One phone call, one honest conversation, one act of courage. That might be the difference between a child who comes home and a father who spends the rest of his life searching for her. August 20, 1997, December 27, 2010. She was only 13. She deserved so much more. Protect the children in your life before it's too late to try.